Today, we're unpacking a clash that completely changed the trajectory of human history. We're going to dive into how a single, absolute underdog victory didn't just win a war but literally prevented the extinction of early democracy. Yep, we're talking about the legendary Battle of Marathon.
To really grasp the gravity of this, put yourself in their shoes for a second. Imagine standing on a dusty battlefield, looking out at the horizon, knowing with absolute certainty that if you lose today, your entire civilization, it disappears. Forever. Back in 490 BC, this wasn't some hypothetical scenario. It was the terrifying, immediate reality for the people of Athens. Everything they were and everything they were building literally hung by a thread.
So, let's get into part 1, the threat to Athens and a civilization at risk.
Okay, setting the stage here. On one side, you've got King Darius I. He rules a massive autocratic Persian Empire. And on the other side, Athens, a tiny city-state experimenting with his radical, crazy new concept called early democracy. Darius wasn't just looking to expand his borders, though. He wanted to punish Athens for supporting a rebellion against Persian rule over in Asia Minor, to send a definitive message, and frankly, to crush this democratic experiment before it could spread like wildfire. He sent thousands of soldiers across the Aegean Sea to invade Greece. And in 490 BC, that massive invasion force makes landfall right on the plain of Marathon. We're talking just 40 kilometers from Athens itself. It was literally right on their doorstep. The Persians landed expecting a super easy victory against a much smaller Greek force. Their goal was incredibly straightforward: conquer Athens, crush any resistance, and bring the rest of Greece firmly under the thumb of the mighty Persian Empire.
Which brings us to part 2, outnumbered at Marathon, defying the odds.
Now, the Athenians knew they were heavily outnumbered, but, surrender simply wasn't on the table. Led by a brilliant general named Miltiades, the entire isolated Greek force they managed to scrape together was basically roughly 10,000 Athenian soldiers, joined by a brave, tiny contingent of about 1,000 warriors from the nearby city of Plataea. That's it. Together, this force of 11,000 guys marched out to Marathon to face down an absolute superpower.
So, how do you even survive that? Well, the Greeks had to rely on brilliant strategy and incredibly superior discipline. They take up defensive positions at Marathon and prepare to unleash their legendary phalanx formation. If you don't know what a phalanx is, it's this highly disciplined military formation made up of heavily armored soldiers called hoplites. These hoplites carried incredibly long spears and large shields that literally interlocked. Think of it as a moving, impenetrable wall of bronze and wood.
Let's move into part 3, the bold tactical charge. This is Miltiades' masterpiece.
When the actual day of the battle arrives, Miltiades doesn't just sit back and wait to get attacked. Instead, he makes this shockingly bold decision. He orders his heavily armored men to charge toward the Persian lines at a dead run. Now, this wasn't just to look intimidating. Closing that distance fast drastically reduced the time they were exposed to the deadly, devastating impact of the Persian archers. They literally sprinted right through a hail of arrow fire to violently smash into the enemy lines. And smash they did! The disciplined Greek phalanx hit the Persian forces with unbelievable force. Miltiades had deliberately strengthened the outer wings of his formation. It was a genius move. Because of this strategic alignment, as the center of the battle raged on, those strong Greek wings were able to fold inward and literally surround the enemy. The sheer shock and pressure of this maneuver completely broke the Persian lines, forcing the invaders into a chaotic, scrambling retreat all the way back to their ships. This leads us right into part 4, a stunning Greek victory and a massive turning of the tables.
Against literally all expectations, the battle ends in a stunning, decisive Greek victory. Ancient sources tell us that thousands upon thousands of Persian soldiers were killed during the clash and that crazy retreat, while Greek losses were miraculously small in comparison. And look, while modern historians love to debate the exact granular numbers, there is universal agreement on the bottom line here. The Greeks won decisively. They forced a massive Persian invasion force to turn tail and run from their shores.
But the story doesn't end on the battlefield. Welcome to part 5, a race into history, where a legend is born.
You see, according to a famous later tradition, the folks waiting back in Athens were absolutely terrified. They just assumed they were about to be conquered. So, to deliver the good news and stop a total citywide panic, a legendary messenger named Pheidippides makes a grueling, non-stop run all the way from the battlefield of Marathon back to Athens. He bursts in, announces the victory, and then, as the legend goes, immediately collapses and dies from pure exhaustion.
Now, again, historians love to debate the exact nitty-gritty details of Pheidippides' famous journey, but its cultural legacy, that cannot be debated. It is so fascinating to realize that the modern marathon races, those 26.2-mile endurance events that millions of people around the globe train for today, they're named directly after the exact battlefield where this civilization-saving victory took place. Honestly, every time you watch a marathon, you are basically watching a tribute to this exact moment in 490 BC.
Which brings us to our final act, Part 6, Saving Greek Democracy and a Legacy that Lasts to this day.
The Battle of Marathon had a profound, totally lasting impact on world history. First and foremost, it proved to the entire world that the Persian Empire was not invincible. That is a massive psychological shift. It gave the Greek city-states the vital confidence they needed to resist future invasions. And boy, would they need it, because just 10 years later, Greece would have to face Persia all over again in the legendary battles of Thermopylae, Salamis, and Plataea.
But by preserving their independence at Marathon, the Greeks held back the tide. Many historians argue that this specific underdog victory ensured ancient Greek culture was actually allowed to flourish. Because they won, Greek philosophy grew. Science expanded, and the very concept of early democracy survived to fundamentally shape our modern world. If Marathon had been lost, the cultural ripples that eventually birthed Western civilization as we know it might have been silenced forever. Ultimately, more than 2.5 millennia later, this battle remains this potent, powerful symbol of courage, strategy, and sheer determination against overwhelming odds. It is a permanent reminder that history isn't just a math equation. It's not always decided by whoever has the largest army, but sometimes it's decided by who possesses the strongest will to protect their home. So, as we wrap up this explainer on this monumental clash, I want to leave you with a final thought to ponder about the fragility and the incredible resilience of our democratic ideals. What exactly would our world look like today if that Athenian line had broken on the plains of Marathon? It's a heavy question to ask yourself. Thank you so much for joining me today, and keep questioning the history that shapes our present.